So now, today is Good Shepherd Sunday. And if you haven't noticed by now, we're talking about sheep again. But there's much in this passage that Cliff just read that I could talk about. But I decided today that I'm going to talk about sheep and just what it means when God talks about the shepherd. Because the first reference to
a shepherd was not even the first one is the 23rd Psalm, and it wasn't necessarily Jesus as the shepherd. Because the first reference to a shepherd and to God as a shepherd actually comes from the book of Genesis, where Jacob is blessing his son Joseph. As Jacob is about to die, he goes to Joseph and he blesses them with these words: "The God before whom my ancestors Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day." So Jacob refers to God as a shepherd. Moses does also. Moses, as he asked God for a new leader for the Israelites, Moses, knowing that he would not go into the promised land, he would die before the Israelites get there, is asking for a new leader. He asks it this way: God, send a leader who shall go out before them and come in before them, who shall lead them out and bring them in, so that the congregation of the Lord may not be like sheep without a shepherd. And you have King David, who actually was a shepherd. That was his profession before he was anointed and called to be King David. And speaking of David, before he became the king of Israel, it's written in 2 Samuel, "It was you, David, who led us out of Israel and brought it in. The Lord said to you," that is to David, "it is you who shall be the shepherd of my people Israel, who shall be a ruler over Israel." The reference to Israel the reference to Israel as the sheep who have no shepherd is also found in 1 Kings. "I saw all Israel scattered on the mountain like sheep that have no shepherd." And David, as you are very familiar with Psalm 23, begins, "The Lord is my shepherd." And one more, speaking hope to Judah in exile in Babylon, the prophet Isaiah said, "God promises you someone who will lead his flock like a shepherd, who will gather the lambs in his arms and carry them in his bosom, and gently lead the mother sheep." God, Jeremiah promises too, "I will raise up a shepherd over them." But shepherds were human beings, and sometimes those shepherds didn't do exactly what God intended. They didn't fill their role to the people, to the sheep of God. And God got a little angry with them. And through the prophet Ezekiel, he tells Ezekiel to prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. "Prophesy and say to them, all you shepherds of Israel who have been feeding yourself, should not shepherds feed the sheep? You eat the fat, you clothe yourself with wool, you slaughter the fatlings, but you do not feed the sheep. You have not strengthened the weak. You have not healed the sick. You have not bound up the injured. You have not brought back the strays. You have not sought the lost. But with force and harshness you have ruled them." And in the book of Ezekiel, those became the wicked shepherds that part of Israel followed. And I think in some way, there's a lesson in that for us, but that's for another time and another place. So I looked up this week the role of shepherds then and now, and truly not much has changed since the time of Ezekiel or Isaiah. Not much has changed in the role of a shepherd since the time of Jesus. Sure, modern shepherds might live in a trailer or even a heated cabin instead of in a tent that has to be moved every time the animals move. They may be able to call a vet quickly because they have cell service, but the responsibilities are still the same. They are responsible for the flock's welfare. A shepherd's primary responsibility is the safety and welfare of the flock. Some flocks may include as many as 1,000 sheep. That's a lot of sheep to take care of. The shepherd will graze the animals on one part of the pasture, and then as that forage is gone, they have to herd them to other areas. They have to keep out a watchful eye for poisonous plants. They might have helpers like dogs or even llamas who will help them move the sheep along. But the shepherd is the one with the responsibility. They're also responsible for protecting the sheep under their care from the predators. Just like the mother, the ewe sheep, taught the lambs how to protect themselves or what to look for, the shepherd has the overall responsibility of watching out for that wolf or that lamb. That's where our phrase, a wolf in sheep's clothing, comes from. The shepherd has to learn that wolf that sneaks in that maybe looks like one of the sheep, because there are 1,200 different breeds of sheep and they're not all white and woolly. Right, kids? We talked about them in our kids club this morning. They also have to take care of the animals, take care of the sheep and the lambs by protecting their health. Sheep are susceptible to diseases brought on by insects, and diseases just brought on by living in a barnyard or out in a pasture somewhere, whether it be on a hot savanna in southern Africa or on a mountaintop in the Alps in Europe or in Vermont or Canada or the United States or here on Hawaii. The shepherd is responsible for the taking care of the health of those animals. And there oftentimes is no really quick pick up your phone and call a vet. The shepherd has to look for the diseases and treat them before a vet can get to them. And during lambing season, which is happening in some places right now, the shepherd has to be there 24/7 to watch out for those mothers and those young lambs and frequently check on them all hours of the night and day. The shepherd is also responsible for shearing the sheep or finding someone to shear the sheep. Have you ever seen a YouTube video of a sheep being sheared or any movie of a sheep being sheared? Man, that is a job and a half. You know, sheep don't lose their fur or shed their fur when it gets hot, like many dogs do and like cats do. They have to be shed. They have to be sheared because the weight of that wool is heavy. And this little lamb here isn't too heavy, but when you have 6 inches or 7 inches of fur or wool growing on you, it drags you down and it's heavy and it pulls on the skin and it's sore and it's hard. And a sheep shearer has to hold this sheep that weighs a few hundred pounds, hold it like this with the shearers to get the sheep off, the wool off, and to watch to make sure that they don't cut the skin. It takes a special talent. It takes a special love of these creatures for a shepherd to work with them. So I ask you, because we call Jesus a shepherd, where do you see Jesus fulfilling these roles? The role of caring for the welfare of the sheep, the role of protecting us from predators, the role of being our veterinarian, if you will, taking care of our health, our physical health and our spiritual health. Where do you see Jesus? Also, in the kind of nurturing and loving care that a mother, that a ewe gives to her lambs. So when you recite Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. He leads me to green pastures. He leads me to still waters. Think about that shepherd. Think about that shepherd that God sent to us, that shepherd that is God with skin on, if you will, and just all the 24/7 care that Jesus, our shepherd, gives to us. And I want to close with this thought, also from Kim Goodling, who I said earlier is a shepherdess in Vermont. She talks about shepherds this way. Through the shepherd's hands, new life is welcomed to the farm. These same hands care for each sheep, feeding them, tending them when sick, guiding them to new pastures, and giving them security. The sheep learn the touch of their shepherd's hands and the sound of their voice. They learn that when the shepherd is present, they are safe, they are cared for, and they are protected. I've seen agitated sheep completely relax and become peaceful when their shepherd calls and comes to them. The bond, shepherd to sheep, is one of complete trust. Hear that again. The bond of shepherd to sheep and sheep to shepherd is one of complete trust. Jesus says of his flock, my Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them from my Father's hand, for the Father and I are one. In what shepherd do you put your complete trust? Amen.